to show us?
Well, a lot of
In
things.
elective land
Oh,
or wellness land.
well, wellness land and elective land are two different things.
Okay, where would
state
you like
and
to
city.
start?
We'll start in the city of wellness.
Okay.
So some of our math scores this year were not stellar, so we tried to incorporate some more like reading graphs and interpreting graphs.
Oh, yeah.
So this is some graphs on obesity rates per race or ethnicity, and then with questions to be answered underneath.
Okay.
For our alcohol unit, we did charting the song lyrics kind of a thing.
Yep.
So these are the lyrics to a song about alcohol, and then they talked about what they thought, and then we discussed it in a philosophical chairs. That's pretty good for wellness. This is some of Brad's like media and science things. His Cornell notes are really solid. He does good review. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Right, are we supposed to describe what we did?
Yes, please.
Okay. So, that's fine. A couple examples of VCRs. This one was for Spanish, and they were talking about the difference between cognates and false cognates, how they help us learn languages, and this one was for media. We talked about crowdsourcing media, how that affects how people gain knowledge, and this one is a favorite activity where the kids process their knowledge of different vocabulary words.
Hi, welcome
This
to my
is
mess.
a free activity that was a free activity for philosophical chairs where they gathered information for or against from the text, and then there's also space to give their own ideas beyond what was in the text, just to prepare them to speak. Down here is Cornell Notes. This is kind of just a general Cornell Notes for Spanish class, and then this one demonstrates one of the repetitions they do at the very end is they cloud circle words that they are still learning, and they star circles that they know really well, and they process on the side with questions and drawings for the vocabulary, and then there's some activities at the bottom that provide different types of summary activities and analysis. And this last one over here was again from media. It was a critical reading they did where they analyzed an editorial to try and find the different parts of the editorial.
Yeah. You said like a college research.
Yeah. So I gave just the vocab that I knew they'd run into, and then
7th and 8th grade math. What have you got to show me?
So we had, this year we tried the Socratic method a couple times. So this was one of the activities that we did after talking about arithmetic sequences. And so we just posed the question of how high up will they be on the 80th floor, and that's all we gave them. And so the first thing they did within their small groups was talk about what other information do we need to be able to find out how high up we are. And so they came back and they asked, we came back together as a class and asked, what do you guys want to know? And so they would ask things like, well, how tall is the lobby? Because that's a special floor. How tall is the pinnacle that, they intend at the very, very top? So they asked the questions that they needed. There were certain things that we wouldn't give to them because that would be too obvious. But we gave them enough information to go back within their groups and figure out how high up they were on the 80th floor. And then from there we kind of built on to the rest of the lesson. It was kind of a cool intro to using the arithmetic sequences to get us there.
Yeah, and asking good questions. Tell me about these.
So the foldables, you want to talk about that?
Foldables, so a lot of times in math we just have so much information to get through to them, so we've kind of broken it up so that each section has its own. So then they have to go in here and write what it is, they have to write the examples of it. And a lot of these are just kind of their quick references for all the foldable stuff. But kind of when we have a lot of different pieces in the same target, we kind of break it up with foldables just so they can organize it. better.
Can we look at the Cornell notes here?
Yeah. So there's C notes. So after we've done the lesson, so we went through and for this we were writing the 3 different ways to come up with a linear equation from different given information. So then when they went home, they filled in their summary, their toolbox, which is just a quick refresher, a quick reminder of what they learned from that lesson, and then some of their higher level questions on the left there. To go back and review their notes.
And I think math is the only subject that we've been using toolbox in.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Hello, 6th grade math.
Yeah.
What have you got to show us?
That's from a different.
We got a little bit of everything.
Okay, start somewhere.
So, evidence of the Socratics. This has a little bit of a critical reading strategy to start off.
So were these Native American?
Then
Yes.
they do a brief before discussion questionnaire. They talked in their groups for about 4 minutes just about the different types of data and which one they had more interest in. And then they needed to repeat which type of data they found more interesting and why, or if they changed their mind.
More ancient.
This is an example of a BCR on a target quiz. The last question on the quiz is one where they have to explain their work, and we really focus on the brief part of this. In their notes, we've got critical reading strategies where they're highlighting key terms. Some of this is also mixed in where they're using their highlighting as review. Over here, the summary is clearly part of evidence of reviewing their notes. This is one of the things they would do at the end of the day.
And alignment.
And now you've got Mr. Organized.
A lot of them trimmed it out.
The BCRs, and keep them in here.
We're looking at
This is the writing prompt. The first try and second try. You got your 10/24/7. You have your notes, your writing prompt at the end of the day, answering the essential question. Some practice. Next day, 12 hours later, come back a week later and do another one. Highlighting the text is one of the strategies we like to use, pulling out important information, word problems, especially for math. And then we had a Socratic writing prompt at the end of one of the.
He ended up in the hospital that night.
And pretty much Cornell Notes is used the entire
So it runs all the way through.
from the first week to the very last.
In the afternoon.
Very good, thank you.
Students,
6th grade humanities. Hi, Andy. Hi, Brett.
Hi.
Hello. What would you like to show us?
This over here. Okay, it's really good.
Okay.
Hi. So, this is just some Socratic preparation, and there's a Socratic seminar that 6th graders have been working on. So, I don't know if you've seen Socratics, but they take some text and do some critical reading, marking of keywords and underlining key ideas, and then some margin notes with main ideas and their thoughts, and then they prepare with some questions that I give them, and then prepare with some questions that they'd like to guide the discussion, and then set them up in groups of 3 where they've got a couple of wingmen, one that's taking Cornell notes and the other that's assessing the way that their partner's talking and what they're saying, and then they get in 9. Basically set up the classroom like this, and they've got, usually you're only doing 1 or 2 texts. They had a couple of texts in front of them, so they're referencing back and forth, and we just come from outdoor school where they had experienced a clash of cultures between some schools that that didn't have the diversity that we have, so they'd experienced some personal racial problems, and so then we researched it and sort of found out that segregation is becoming more prominent in the schools now than it has in the last 30 years. So it was great.
So you got
Awesome. So it was amazing.
some really good personal information.
Yeah, and then this one is a philosophical chairs that they did on standardized testing.
Yay!
I know, it was awesome, and so we researched a little bit. This was kind of quick, but the expert, they did a they split this article up, and it's got pros and cons of testing, and they did a expert group, kind of a tea party, call it, where each group is responsible for just first section, so that the reading isn't as heavy because it was kind of heavy. And then on procon.org, they've got some really good just lists of pros and cons on big topics that are hot button items. And then I did the Big V, which is the district Big V. And I was trying to teach them elaboration strategies. So there's 10 different ways they can elaborate. So we took one of the reasons from progon.org that they chose to go with whatever side they felt strongly on the standardized testing issue, and then their job was to use these strategies to just elaborate one reason, which would fit into it could fit into a 5-paragraph essay. It was just anyway, and then they did a philosophical chairs on that, using their elaboration on their reasons, which was also really good to see. So they kind of line up on two sides, pro and con of whatever the claim is, and then they just take turns going back and forth with whatever they want to say, piggybacking on each other with some sentence frames that are up there for them.
I notice your kids are using their iPads during the philosophical chair process. Is that where they keep their reference?
So yeah, they've got on there, you can see that what I had them do was take kind of what they had elaborated on here and then put them on there with the highlighting, and then they could also quickly jot down things if they heard someone say they wanted to respond to. And then for the next step of this, I had them share their paragraphs that were on there and highlighted like the Big V is with 2 other people. So they actually created a 5-paragraph essay on their iPads, like lickety split, and then they were able to then work together to do the introduction and the conclusion right on there, which there's some.
That is a great way to teach a 5-paragraph essay.
Oh my gosh!
That is
It was awesome! No, I'm so glad you're excited because no one else really cares, but I've been so excited about it.
Find them for me and I will tell them
Isn't
that
that
they need to
cool?
really care.
And
because that's a super valuable arguing skill.
It is, and at the same time, it just really taught them elaboration. I feel like this is the hardest.
And
they get the
structure
structure.
and the organization. Yeah.
But this was, I feel like, the thing that's most rich. And now I can always go back to, remember when you were standing on that side and all of those things you were saying, that's going in this paragraph. And remember when you were saying that, that's going in this paragraph. And it's just really been great.
Okay, I don't know how feasible this is for your kind of 6 to 8 or 6, 7, 8 alignment, but to make sure that your other arts folks hear about that is important to me.
Yeah, okay, good.
Because
it was organic. You know me.
Sometimes that's how it works.
All the time, Christine.
Well, all right.
No, I'm just kidding.
So
It was totally planned, organically.
Hello.
ELD.
This is not going to work.
So far, that's our favorite part. We would like to see what you have to show us in your notebooks or your iPad.
Okay. Well, let's finish with Sarah because it's really cool.
Okay.
So these
I'm
are
sure
just
your stuff is very cool.
we have several things in our notebooks, and all of these, you have Cornell notes from the beginning of the year to Cornell notes. So this is beginning of the year where you can see it's more scaffolded. Right, where they have things to fill in, and then they create
and I just Googled it and found
questions and then summaries on the out section, and it's very structured. And then if you move to Cornell Notes at the end of the year, they can take them on their own. They're better at revising them, and they create their own questions and summaries. So it's much more
adapted version.
student responsibility there. This is an example of kind of reading with marking and text with comparing and contrasting, so you can see the different color highlighters.
It's a great article. They can't read it.
Depending on if you're comparing or contrasting. This is an example of a brief constructed response. But this is the final draft. So on top of the rough draft, on top of the frames that kind of identify, describe, and explain, so they can help understand the prompts.
To the Washington Redskins.
So that's what those are, three examples of brief constructed response. This is an example of a vocab strategy, and they're also a review. So they learned new vocabulary, and then as an out section, they had to draw what they saw, or draw, pictures of the words, as many as they could in there. So for some kids, it works really well. for others it does not. It worked really well for her. This is an example of philosophical chairs prep for we did a unit on the DREAM Act and whether or not it should be passed into law. And so we talked. This is just preparation for the DREAM Act here. So Sarah,
I have a lot of the same stuff in my notebook. This is an example of a sort of a BCR prep. So here they had to identify different parts of a BCR, and this was kind of the same structure that they were going to need to do for their own BCRs and subsequent lessons. Cornell notes. A lot of times for my ELD kids, I have them do fill in the blanks so they don't have to do as much writing. And then they go back and highlight and add symbols as part of a 10/24/7 review. This was a 7-day Cornell note review where they had to go back and highlight, add some symbols, and answer some review questions. More critical reading where they're marking the text and then they're going back and adding things that they've highlighted to a graphic organizer. And then this activity was part of a unit where we were studying different styles of art, mostly modern art. And so that, they'd done a lot of reading about different styles of art. And then for the final project, they had to create their own artwork. So that's what you see here. And they had to choose one of the 4 styles. I have Renaissance art, Surrealism, pop art, and graffiti art. They had to choose one of the 4, do an artwork in that style. Then they had to write a short description comparing it to other artists who work in that style, and that was the label that they would put, kind of like as you would see in a museum. And then they did a gallery walk philosophical chairs where they had to respond to statements. Like, for example, this one is like, Eric's piece is interestinger than Wilbur's. So they would go to one side of the room if they agreed, one side of the room if they disagreed, and then in addition to that, because we're studying the grammar form of comparatives and superlatives, they had to give me a thumbs up, thumbs down on the correctness of the grammar. So obviously that one would have gotten a thumbs down. So they did that, and then finally they wrote a BCR, brief constructive response, comparing and contrasting each other's artworks using the target language structures. So that was something they started with, a Venn diagram, comparing each other's artworks. I had a paragraph frame available for them, and then they would write a final draft, and they were assessed on how well they responded to the prompt, and as well as how accurately they used the grammar. So yeah, that was our little art unit.
That's very cool.
Had some good ones.
Thank you.
Hi, would you like to see my binder?
I would very much like to see your
Well,
binder,
this isn't
please.
exactly mine. This is a friend because he couldn't make it. So I volunteered to show his binder for him.
Surrogate binder showing. That's fine.
And so this is our supply bag, and there's a hole puncher, a glue stick, and scissors. And then we have to have 2 pencils, highlighter, at least 2 color highlighters, 2 pens, erasers, and lead and stuff. So we'll always have pencils, and then our community service hours for Avid. And then this is the planner. Highlighting is homework, and stamps is when you make sure you have your whole week filled in and stuff. And when you have your signature at the bottom, usually there's something for Monday folder, but that means there was nothing that day. And so Monday folder is when we get important sheets, and so all the sheets for the week that we need to have signed come on Monday. And so this is about this is stamp count kind of how many minutes you read and then how many stamps you get. And so you measure how many minutes you read and then make sure you have a signature and highlighting. And you usually put goals in the top so that you hope to achieve them, and you mark out the days that you're not there. And this elective is marked out because we only have 2 electives, Avid and our morning electives. And then this is just talking about our TRFs and our philosophical chairs, and it talks about our quizzes and all that stuff, and no school. And then that's all. And then these are Cornell notes for like they're falling out because it's mine.
It's okay.
So these are Cornell notes. These ones aren't Cornell notes. These are ones that you take before you turn them into Cornell notes if you just need to get them done right then. And then this is blank paper just in case you need to do Cornell notes like soon. And this is for our career project Cornell notes. And so this is his math IMB, and it has like our stuff gluing and like all the grades and stuff. And then right here, this is his humanity note BCR and table of contents for like when we do conferences, and it's humanities IMB, and it has like our maps cut for social studies and like critical reading, and that's where you just talk about like what you're thinking as you read, and you highlight and take notes on what you're reading. And then Cornell notes, and then there's this is always okay. His math table of contents, and then his science IMB, but the science IMBs aren't notebooks. They're actually just papers that we file in a section with notebook paper that are like IMBs, but our teacher finds this to be more effective than a notebook. And then there's the Avid IMB, and it has like the notes that the teacher tells us, and like our lifelines of important parts of our life, and our memoirs about something that we dramatic or something that happened in our life that we find makes us unique. And then our group activities that's supposed to make us feel more like an avid fan. Okay, that's all. Yeah, that's all. And then this is what the Monday folder looks like. It's just a little plastic type folder thing that you slide it in, and then when you take it home, you have to have your parents review it and sign it, and you have to bring it back. And then this is the outdoor school photo in the back right there.
So over the course of the week, you put things into your folder with
Only
the
on Mondays.
Oh, only on Mondays.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you get all the papers you need for Mondays, and then have your parents see them, and then sign them, and then you get stamps for them on Fridays.
Okay. Very good. Thank you very much. Sixth grade science.
Yeah.
What would you like to show us?
Defense. Now nobody wants to show you. Read some really great Cornell notes. This is one way we do it. Shrink it down, and then the kids can also put their summary and their questions on the page below, or they can try to fill them in here if they want to. There's a backside to it too. This is a grasping the concept. They outline their hand, and then they put in, this has to do with the seasons, so the 4 seasons, and then an additional little tidbit.
And our kids, you can see us down
We've been marking the text in preparation for a Socratic seminar, so they're underlining different things in red or green depending on if it's for or against space exploration. Then we did the Socratic, and they each scored themselves on how well they did.
And they're all at least moving.
Some follow-up questions.
But they went from does not from near.
That's about it.
What are these guys?
These are BCRs, brief constructed responses. Just a quick little response to a prompt, just as like a formative assessment. See how they're doing.
And this is an example of one that's meeting and one that's succeeding?
Yes.
So the top is pretty much essentially
How often do you do these?
We do more often than the students like.
Okay.
Probably 2 in each unit. Each chapter will have 2 of them, just so they can.
And they're getting very used to it.
Right. This would have to do with one state standard,
Okay.
just to see if they really have a good grasp on it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Very welcome.
Hi, Tamara.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. What have you got to show us?
This is my, because I teach SPED, I keep a modified IMB. So this is the modifications. give their list to them, and then I update it. And then they have everything on the top that's most recent, and then things that are less recent are on the bottom. So they don't have to keep the page numbers all exactly right. So what we do is when we're done with it, we put it on the top. And then this is what we just finished with. This is the final copy of the shared document. They typed it into their Google Docs, and then they shared it with me, and then I printed it out. So this would be the thing, like the last thing that we did. And then this is how we got there. So we marked the text, we read about it, we answered questions about the text, and we made claims and supporting evidence. This is a graphic organizer. This is going backwards.
Right, so we're going back in time.
Yes. And this is, they chose a claim. So this is her claim she chose, is hip hop can have a positive effect on kids' behavior. And then she says con, pro, but really these are all pro. And then this is a restatement of her claim, and kind of, this is her graphic organizer for that. And then before we did this, we did these vocabulary squares, and the kids, I try to teach them the vocabulary that they're going to see with the project. So it's argument, so controversial was a word, explicit, correlation, and they have like a pictorial representation, the definition, antonyms and synonyms, and they use their iPads for all of these things. They use their iPads to look all the words up and to find synonyms and antonyms on thesaurus.com. And then they also, before even they did this, we took notes, and this is the Common Core requirements for an argumentative essay. And while we take notes, we talk about it. And this is her little question that she wrote. Does every argument have or need a correlation? Because they're trying to figure out what correlation means. And then this is my opener. And along with all of these, this is the Google presentation that I made that goes with it, and it's over a few days. So this is the opener one that I would show them. And then every day I show them this, and it tells what the learning objectives are. So what we will do, how we will do it, and then how we know that we learned it at the end. And sometimes this will last, 3 or 4 days. And then we talk about it, we try it out with a partner, things like that. And then our opener was this Google presentation, which is for and against. And this was my learning objectives for and against, so I put that up on my Google presentation on the board. And then these are high interest topics for middle school kids. That's how we formulated our discussion. Homework is bad for kids. Students should have to wear uniforms. Professional athletes get paid too much because it was during the NBA finals or semifinals. Marijuana should be legal. Your parents should be able to GPS your phone.
So you get a lot of takers on that?
We got a lot of takers. And that's how we made this for and against partner work. So they chose one, and they used their iPads to look up information on the topics that they chose. So, and it goes on and on. But so we're doing cyberbullying right now. Here's my cyberbullying crossword puzzle. And I cover all the WICAR strategies as we go along, and we take Cornell notes. Everything's a little bit modified though because it is special education, and my students are reading about 2 grade levels below where you would expect them to be for their age. So. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now we're going to be looking at Evan. Hi, Whitney.
Hi, do you want Kim to be with us?
I'll go get her in just a second. Why don't you go ahead and start showing us what you have for us, please.
Well, I just pulled a bunch of random notebooks and opened them up to interesting pages. So I started with a lot of reading. So Avid does a lot of writing to learn and of course reading to learn, and every time I use a text I bring it to a full discussion, so it's hard for you to see any form of discussion within a notebook, but it's there. So page after page you'll see lots of reading, poems, and writing to go with it. Other things we do in Avid is, this looks a mess, but it's a process, I promise. We work on writing memoirs and narratives, and the reason for that is because they'll have to be writing college essays soon, and essays often are that form of memoir. And so in this grade, 7th grade, we provided them with some prompts, some moves that good writers take while they're composing their essays. So these are their sentence frames, and then over here is her rough draft, and then I'd have to pull up her final from my Google Docs if you wanted to see that. They typed it in the iPad and shared it with me for their final draft, which was pretty cool. Let's see, other things we do in Avid is work on behavior. So you can see this is, oh, that's not what I thought. That's researching. We use the CRAP method for evaluating sources, which is one they won't forget. So current, relevant, who's the author, is the information accurate, and what is the purpose? Is there a bias? And if so, have you identified that bias? And so we taught kids to research keeping this in mind. And then the behavior piece, we looked at the 7 habits of highly effective teens. We practice each one. Discussion is part of that. Working together, being proactive, talking to your teachers, etc. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here. What else do you want to know?
That was kind of all we wanted to see. You've had more experience than most people, obviously, in using these because you've been at it for a little bit longer.
Yeah. I mean, the way that Avid notebooks are set up also is that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we do curriculum. So you'll see these front pages are all curriculum. Tuesday, Thursday is tutorials, so kids will turn it over. And these are all the tutorials and the subject that they brought for those tutorials with their TRF and the notes that go with it. So that's the way it's organized, and it works really well to keep it. It's easy to see what day it is for a multi-day class.
Very good. Thanks, Whit.
Yeah, you're welcome.
7th grade language arts. Hello. Hi. What can you show us about 7th grade language arts?
I'll let Dave share.
Oh, good. This is a recent critical reading activity we did on Malaysia Flight 370. We decided to ask the kids what they'd like to critically read, and a lot of their choices had to do something with death or violence, and so we decided to use this because it was timely, and most of them knew something about it. And so we critically read this one article that summarizes a lot of the different theories about what might have happened to the plane. And this is around the time that they thought they had found the black box. And so after critically reading that, they had to write a BCR where they wrote about what they thought was the most logical theory based on the evidence. Yeah, this is an example of one that's been critically read where they mark the text. Yeah. And they had to back up what they thought was the best explanation with evidence in the text, and they had to include an opposing viewpoint, because each one of these sections had an opposing viewpoint as to why that wouldn't be a logical theory. And we showed a couple of videos too. That's the rubric for the VCR.